The Sportsline Podcast continues to roll on, and we certainly appreciate you checking us out. I'm Bubba O'Neill. As I always say, the Golden Horseshoe is a gold medal winner for outstanding athletes, coaches, executives, media members, and sporting events. Now, leading with the Tiger Cats, the Marauders, Hurricanes, and right down to the high school level. In Hamilton, Halton, and Niagara, football is king, and where memories are made.
Ryan to the air once again, looking downfield, fires, caught, down, he'll score!
It was a bit of a fairy tale season, but we meant business.
They're gonna see that Cinderella's wearing steel-toe boots. The sauce. You gotta have sauce. You got sauce? Sauce is that it factor.
And then, of course, the tragedy happened.
Well, if you've ever played high school football, this is the movie event of the year. This evening, the hard work of Hamilton native and TSN's Dennis Ryan will come to life with a nostalgic look at the 1992 St. Mary's Football Championship. The sports doc, which is an amazing David versus Goliath story, is called Steel Toe Boots and the Sauce, and will have its debut showing at the Westdale Theater. The premiere will be followed by a Q&A with coaches and players, and we are so fortunate to have the producer Dennis Ryan on the pod. Thank you so much for joining us. This has got to be a real exciting time for you.
Thanks for having me. Yeah, it's been an amazing, crazy stretch of months, and now that it's at its completion, it's really amazing.
Why? What made you? What was the inspiration? Obviously, the team did amazing things, but to do something like this takes a lot of work.
Yeah, so if I knew how much work it was, I may have had second thoughts about it. But anyway, no, it's we had, everyone that goes through that process in high school or plays for a team that has some amazing success. You think that's an amazing story and it's something that people want to hear about. What we really did, even at the time, we felt, we had some, some tragedy happen to our team, and we had some triumph happen to our team, and we just, at the time of going through it, we kind of looked at it like week by week. This is crazy. This feels, there's some magic going on. This is Hollywood stuff. So that kind of seed was planted way back then. Mm-hmm. And as to why it happened now, you just get to a point where you get a feeling like, you can't indefinitely have an opportunity to do something like this. So, the time is now. Get the guys back together, tell the stories, and ultimately tell the big story.
I'm glad you said get the guys back together. I've said this a lot of times, that high school football is unlike any other sport, in high school especially, where friendships are made and some of them last forever.
Yeah, that's totally true. So that's been, on the one side, this has been a lot of work, obviously, to put together a film. But on the other side, it's a labor of love, because you're bringing back, these relationships that some people you'd kept in touch with, and everything was, you knew how special it was. And others you hadn't seen, guys I hadn't seen in 20 years, guys I hadn't seen in 30 years, literally 32 years since our last, since we graduated from high school. So when you get back together, you remember what made it special. And it wasn't necessarily the winning and all the games. It was the guys and the practices and the jokes and just the little small fun parts of what makes, you really build a bond and a brotherhood, and it does last a lifetime.
I mean, obviously you had to contact a lot of people, coaches, a lot of people that were involved in this doc. Was that, obviously, so as you said, 32 years has crossed since you've maybe last seen each other. Was it tough finding people?
Yes and no. So there'd be a core group there'd be a few guys hanging out on Facebook. Every couple of years, I would put together a little highlight package and throw it on there, and they'd be all pumped up, and everyone would jump in. And that was, 6 or 7 guys, maybe 8, 9 guys. And when I initially had the idea for doing it this time, I said, this is for real, guys. This is going to be, this is going to be a documentary. This is what I've always wanted to do. And of course, they piped in immediately. I'm in. So you have a core of guys, but then there's other guys. Hey, we got to find, here's the list. And then some guys are easier to find. Other guys, it's been almost a year now. Can't find them. They've right. It's a long time. People move to other parts of the country. People have, Some people don't want to be found. But and there's also guys coming to this premiere tonight that have guys we've got in touch with, but they're like, I can't make it to this, I can't make it to that, I have to work. You know, people have other priorities.
Sure.
But we're hoping to see a couple guys show up tonight that we haven't seen, you know, since that time. So it's kind of like a bit of an adventure to like find guys. Again, some guys are easy and some guys are tough.
You got some of your teammates there. Was there you got some coaches involved as well too? I
did, yeah. So we were part of our underdog story was that we're kind of a skeleton staff. Coach Tony Maroney was our head coach. He had a former TICAT player. And then Mario Cassano, who's a St. Mary's alum, was our assistant coach. Both those guys are on board and have been from the beginning of the project. So especially Coach Maroney, like a super inspirational guy, and every guy in the team would tell you like this doesn't happen without him. And also Coach Cassano as well. But Coach Maroney was the first guy that I reached out to, and I said, I wrote this long thing, text, always wanted to do this. It was the best time of our lives. Are you on board? And he responded just 4 words, be an honor kid. And he's like this big, tough Hamilton guy. He's like, be my honor kid. And so at that point, once I had him, I'm like, okay, I can do, like, this is the story. We're going to do it. To reunite like that must have been real special because, as you said, some of the guys have kept in touch. But I would think that for a lot of these, as I grow and get older and I appreciate some different things, for those coaches to look back at you guys, because they're older than you, and see what an inspiration they were for you guys, and vice versa. Like, that's got to be, like, it must be really warming for them to be part of this. Yeah, for sure. So they're super grateful, and we've had these connections that, you know, like it's sometimes you make an impact on people, or you have a bond with people, and you kind of say hypothetically it's there, but you don't interact with them, so you don't know. But like you said, we brought them together and we've said, Coach, this meant so much to me. Coach, you know, we had guys in our team that never thought about college or university, let alone playing football. And it was sort of inspiration of these guys, Coach Maroney, that said, hey, you have talent. You think bigger, you know, let football take you somewhere. And, you know, and even just, you know, that's a big example, but even the smaller examples where these guys were so positive, and as an underdog team, it wasn't a case of, this is what you guys have to do. It was a case of, you know, we believe in you. You're good enough. Right. So that's special. To put together something like this, not everyone can do it, right? You have a television background, so this must have really assisted to you putting together the vision on how you're going to sculpt this whole entire project. Yes, definitely. So that's an advantage that I have. Part of it was just, so I work in transmission at TSN, not in production, but I have worked in production in the past. Mm-hmm. So, you know, I've put together features and stuff like that are 3, 5, 7 minutes long. Mm-hmm. It's a big jump to a film, and I haven't done it in a while. But again, my advantage as well was I had the vision for the story and how I, you know, in my mind, how I wanted it to look. But then I had a couple friends from TSN that stepped on board that said, you know, my passion project became their passion project. Nice. And they, you know, my friend John Butler, who's an amazing camera guy, cinematographer, so he took care of basically, I'll take care of the look and the sound, you worry about the story. So I would, you know, sit there and come up with my questions as a producer, and I didn't have to worry about how's it going to look. You know, he set up all the lighting, so he made it look professional. Obviously, this is an ultimate labor of love. You know, MGM isn't paying you to do this, right? So yeah. This really was a passion project. Yeah, totally. So I've gone through, like, over the years, I've collected, you know, video from here and there, and fortunately I did, because it was easier 15 years ago, like, not to pick on CHCH, but, mm-hmm. you know, you could go to CHCH archives mm-hmm. and ask for, hey, here's some dates, here's some games, I want to get the news highlights that aired on that day. Now, and at that point you pay $30 and you get a DVD and you convert it. So, but nowadays it's, because of corporate ownership, we're now, you know, all that archives are stored off-site and they're unavailable to the public. I don't know if you can help me to get a hold of some of that stuff, but it's more complicated than it used to be. So finding footage, again, of these, other than a few VHS tapes, you know, in my basement kind of thing, it's that's been a big challenge. But we've had some good luck in certain places, and you just rely on, you know, you always hear the story. A guy will tell you, "Oh, I have that game. I recorded that game. My dad taped that game." We talked about this with some of the assumption stuff, but like a lot of it doesn't turn up, or it's like it's like 4 times taped over,
right.
You know, so it's not going to show up nicely, and it's, you know, somebody taped over like Price is Right over like the winning field goal, like just weird stuff like that. So any piece of footage you find is like gold,
right? And I could tell you, because here at CHCH, I mean, you're right. We could have found some visuals, but your film is 1992, and I would think about, and this is probably not just CHCH, this is many TV stations, the amount of visual changes we've done with cameras and where these things are stored. You're looking at beta, the mini betas, now everything's on digital, and with our move, a lot of our old archives, some of that old stuff some was kept, some was basically dumped, all right? And
right.
cut up and gone. Like it's history gone. It's real sad when I think about it. It's sad when I think about it, right? Because especially when you want to look for stuff, you know, or some of those tapes can't be played on anymore because, I don't know, who has a 2-inch reel to play those kind of stuffs anymore. Yeah. And you're right. The people that had stuff on VHS, because I know you had contacted me some 8-9 months ago. Yeah. I didn't even know what I had, and I don't know why I've kept this little case or a big case of VHSs and was able to find some things a little bit, and I don't know how the quality is. And even when you taped in VHS back in those days, for those that remember, you could tape it at 3 different speeds, and that would give you much a better resolution, or just pretty lousy resolution. And it's amazing that you pulled off some of this stuff, and I gotta admit, there's a voice on that tape. There's a voice calling some of those games that I might familiar. They're kind of familiar for me.
Well, I just wanted to say, for the record, like, you guys did an amazing job there with you and the Foxcrofts. I mean, you made that GHAC Bowl sound like the Super Bowl. So, I mean, even for us that played in it, it was a Super Bowl. It was that important to us, and you guys made it, you know, you guys made it 30 years later. When people listen to that, they're like, wow, that was important. So, I mean, you guys did a professional job.
It was important to us, right? Because we had played high school ball, and always, and Steve would tell you the same thing. You know, some of the games he went to, maybe it was 50, 25 people. And when Steve and I met in college, we always wanted to say, if we could ever reproduce what we did, whether we played, whether it be basketball, football, hockey, if we could it'll never be the States, but if we could make it kind of big time for the community. And you guys were right in the pocket where I thought the community really, really grabbed onto your stories, and I thought that was a lot of fun.
Yeah, for sure. You definitely did. You know, obviously we're exposed to the American Friday Night Lights kind of stuff, but this was like a Canadian version of it. This was, like you said, it was that time. It was, you know, it was like that sweet spot of the early 90s when, you know, and actually a buddy of mine that I interviewed for the film, like representing the fans, and how important it was to the fans, the student body, to come out to the games, and how much of an experience it was to go down to Ivor Wynne Stadium. It was like a big deal, and all. But he talked about, like, you know, there was no social media, so that was our social media. Like, we didn't have. You know, people didn't necessarily go. There was less. There was more community involvement, possibly, where maybe there's nothing else to do. You go to the football game, and that's a big deal. Like maybe you know, school spirit was huge, and at the time, you know, we felt like, you know, as we went on our run, you know, we felt like kind of like mini celebrities, because we were. It was a big deal.
Is there anything that, I mean, obviously, this is telling the story of 2 football teams that ended up clashing, both called Crusaders, if I remember correctly, and one was heavily favored, the Burlington team. You guys maybe not so much. As you said, you were kind of a bare bones operation. Assumption, because they had won some GHAC and Halton titles, were kind of like, you know, running at like a pro level for high school stuff. And as I said, it was like this David versus Goliath story. And I think there's something to be learned from that. And was there anything else that you've learned along the way by putting this together?
Well, it's funny that the David and Goliath thing, like we're like, we're happy to go with that, but there's some guys on our team that are kind of like, no, we were good, man. We were good. But I mean, it's part of the David and Goliath thing is that we had, we only had 24 guys, and we had, we had small guys on the line, and it wasn't a case of a bunch of fluky stuff. Like, it was some tough dudes. Like, we had guys 180 pounds, 190 pounds on the line that were, clearing the way. Without people like that, the quarterback and the running back and the receiver aren't getting this glory. But anyway, so small. But yeah, for the story, we were, from the outside, we were big underdogs. But in terms of learning, I think it's, just we really internally, it's about what you believe. It's about believing in yourself and your group, and your team and your coaches, as opposed to what somebody from the outside says you can't do.
Who were you on the team?
Quarterback.
So you were, even at that point, you had, you don't become a high school quarterback if you're not a good leader. And this maybe helped you in doing this project.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the guys, even the guys, everybody coming tonight, like, here's the thing. For a team to succeed, you got so many different personalities, so many different types. And on a football team, you need guys that are kind of like loose cannons and like the guys that, let's say tonight, if we're going to be talking after the film, they're the guys that you don't hand the microphone to necessarily, right? But they're the guys that you need on a football field. And as a leader of, anyway, I learned that from interviewing all the guys too. Let's say for a movie project, every guy provides a different perspective, but it's like a puzzle. Every guy's a different piece of the puzzle, and you can't have 10 guys with the exact same personality and skill set. Like, you just need a bunch of different guys. And the way that we worked was, we picked each other up when somebody made a mistake. The other guy stepped up, and that guy, everybody did their part, and that's what makes a great team.
Is this one of the original helmets?
Yeah, it is.
Wow. Look at that, eh? 19. Like, it's funny because you think about what the helmets look like right now, and you think this is battle tested, right? There's some real scars on this one.
That's Jason McLeod, defensive tackle, offensive tackle. Like, he's one of the guys in the trenches, and you could see how much paint is chipped off that. So those are the guys doing the dirty work, so they deserve a lot of praise.
Those are great artifacts. Anyone to thank? I mean, I'm sure, like I said, you talked about a couple people off the top that helped you put this together, but I'm sure it must be a nation of millions.
Yeah, for sure. It's hard to. So definitely my wife has been there the whole time and just super supportive, even at the start when it probably sounded like a crazy idea. But she's super supportive, and she also has a bit of a graphics background. So for the film, people told me, well, you're going to need to hire a graphic designer to do this, and a graphic designer to build these playoff grids with the teams moving forward and stuff like that. So, she jumped in and she did it, among other things. So as an example, obviously she's there for everything, very supportive of me, but also she was very big in this project. And also when I'd be doing hours and hours of editing, like, she was really good at, I would show her something and she'd say, that's great, but why don't you do this, this, and this? And I'd be like, well, no, because, and then I couldn't think of the reason why I shouldn't. And then I'd change it and like, oh, that's way better. So just, I don't know, that's cool.
And it's funny, you do need that second set of eyes. I need to hear at CHCH when I'm putting together stuff that I'm like, oh, I didn't mess that up, and then someone will just make that one little, like, well, as you said, why don't you try this, or just look at that one little word that's misspelled, and I'm like, I've looked at that word 30 times, and it looked good to me, right? Yeah. It really is when you have that second set of eyes to really help you out in the edit. So when the edit is all complete, and you're done. Was it just the biggest sigh of relief or excitement? I mean, could you even believe it? Because as you said, it's a it's a thought in the beginning, and then it just things are happening, and then when you put together that final cut, and you're like, I think we're done. That's got to be a great feeling.
Yeah, it's an awesome feeling because from the start, in order for something like this to happen, I don't want to use the word obsession, but you think about it constantly. So it's, it's just always on your mind, whether you want it to be or not. And then you're doing something else, but you're thinking, oh, okay, so I should be doing this and whatever. So it's always on you, and it's a positive thing. It's a positive, but it's always, so when you get to the end, and again, we had some issues, like when my friend Doug Lenz, who took over near the end and was giving me a lot of technical support, and we were editing together by the final version. So we were collaborating because he's a real professional with color grading and all these sound mixing. So some things that I didn't have expertise in that he does. But we got to a point where when we tried to export like a version that's good, it started reverting to a couple versions before. And we're like, what's going on here? Like, we've lost stuff. And it was scary and frustrating. We eventually solved it, but yeah, huge relief when you get your version that you're happy with and you're finished.
Yeah, because you have people right now that are just putting together videos on their phones in like a matter of 15 minutes, right?
Yeah,
and in a motion picture kind of thing, in a documentary,
right,
like what you're putting together, that's just not the case.
So
right?
he was a guy that came in and said, this is great, but most people were earlier versions, they're kind of like, wow, this is amazing, patting me on the back. And he said, most people are going to be patting you on the back. I'm going to tell you, you got to do this, 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 and I'm going to help you do it. Mm-hmm. So, it's a little bit humbling at the time. I'm like, oh, I thought I had this all under control. But you need people. You need people to help you. You need people with expertise. And he was one of those guys. So, yeah, this wouldn't have got done without him either.
Well, all this work comes together and will be shown in a 60-minute feature tonight at the Westdale Theater with your buddies alongside you with a Q&A tonight. Really, really appreciate what you guys have put together. I can't wait to see it. I'll be honest with you. Now, I can't make it tonight at 7 o'clock at the Westdale Theater. And I'm sure there's going to be a lot of people that are listening and watching this podcast. Because as I said, I think if you've played high school football, you got to see this because we've all gone through this.
Yeah,
how can we see this, post its debut showing?
Okay, so it's not determined yet. Mm-hmm. It will be available. I'm not sure how. I want to get through this night first, mm-hmm, and then whether it's available on YouTube, Vimeo, or somebody picks it up. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's going to be out there, and I'm going to make sure, I hope you can help me out to let people know soon, because I have a lot of friends. So, yeah, there's people who are involved. There's people who really want to be there that were involved. And like you said, I think there's I think it will resonate with people who, aren't specifically involved, but played high school football, that played high school sports, that were involved in, other activities that in the high school age when you're, things that are really, really special to you that you want to keep alive and relive. So
the losing team, the losing team, the Assumption Crusaders. Well, I'm sure they're going to want to see this as well too, right? To see how it was from your perspective.
Some people maybe don't want to see it, but
I'm going to tell you, I don't think there's anyone. I think if you're in Burlington, you went to Aldershot, MM, Robinson, Nelson, wherever, you're going to want to see this because, like I said, I think this is relative to anyone that plays football at this level, and that you can look back because. I hate to say it in some ways because we've all done great things and been lucky and fortunate in so many ways, and wife and people with kids and whatever. But boy, football days were great. You said it was the best days of my life. I'm like, yeah, they really were kind of.
Well, ultimately, the original goal of this project was, okay, it's not about, hey, remember when we were amazing? Remember when I was the quarterback throwing touchdowns? It's about that feeling that you get with your buddies sitting in the locker room before you go out and play, and you can't recreate it. And it's just about, you're about to do something important you feel is the biggest thing in the world, and it's with your buddies, and it's with your, it's just a very unique, special feeling that, part of this entire project that makes it worth it is trying to recreate that.
Dennis, good luck tonight. And again, keep us informed when you do, because I think this is great for a community, especially here in Hamilton, Niagara, Halton as well, too, that people are going to want to view this film. And one last question. Will you do anything like this again?
It's kind of funny because, like, I was a marathon runner at a time, and that when you run a marathon, your first instinct when you cross the finish line is, I will never do this again because of what you put your body through. And then after, sometimes it's only 10 minutes and you're like, what's the next one? So I haven't reached that point to say what's the next one. Right now, I just want to enjoy what we've done, enjoy the night tonight, get all the guys, together, and then who knows?
If you do, let us know.
Sure, I will. I will.
Thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
That's your Sportsline Podcast for the day. And if you've just seen and heard, we love talking with local sports lovers. If you do know of an athlete, team, or event to promote, the Sportsline Podcast want to hear from you. Please subscribe, smash that thumbs up and like button. And if you have something to say, we appreciate your comments. A reminder, if it's sports news or what's trending now, our podcast network on CHCH have you covered. For the outstanding folks that produce the Sportsline Podcast, thank you so very much, and we'll see you tomorrow.